Namaste. The breakup pain nobody talks about when you had a narcissistic parent. There's a patient that's been seeing me for several years. And also I've even had some emails similar to this, where she got into an argument with her boyfriend of 2 years. They were just engaged and they were gonna plan for a wedding. They got into an argument. What she does is she goes into a room, waits for him to apologize. He doesn't apologize. And what she does right away with her emotional mind, not rational mind, with her emotional mind, gets upset, has a resentment, amygdala fires, cortisol increases, norepinephrine is off the charts. And then she texts an ex. And what is she texting the ex? Not that she wants to get back together with him, but hatred, resentment. You know what? You men are all the same. I only knew my mother for the last 7 years of her life. The first 8 years that I was with her, in and out of domestic violence shelters, child protective services, adult protective services, and the juvenile police, had a pretty intimate relationship with all of those. The times that my mother and I were together were mainly in domestic violence shelters. I got separated from her at 8. I moved to Seattle. During my teenage years, my mother and I did live together in Section 8 housing, where she was in and out of Overlake Hospital, other psychiatric facilities, 6 to 9 months with manic episodes. I went to juvenile detention 3 times for stealing jeans and joyriding. After that, I moved to India to go to medical school. And then my mother and I got reunited when I was 33 after I took her out of a psychiatric facility the day I graduated residency. And then we lived together for the last 7 years of her life. I'm 9 years old. I'm sitting on my dad's lap. My mother comes from Juneau to visit me after a year. My dad wouldn't allow me to talk to her. So we didn't have much communication. I may have spoken to her a few times over several years. My dad had pretty much figured out ways for me to just forget about her and make her seem like she's evil and a bad person. Although she's the sweetest woman I've ever known in my life. He says, hit your mom. I did. And when I hit her, her glasses fell off and then she started bleeding a little bit. But she smiled. And here's what I think at this age, I'm 45 now. The reason why I think that she smiled is she was so happy that she saw me. And we're talking about narcissistic parents here. Let's try to analyze and try to understand what he was thinking. So what we want to do here is we don't want to worry about what anybody did to us. Maybe we can try to empathize with them and understand what they're thinking. I'm sitting down maybe about 15 years later. Don't know, I'm married at the time. I'm sitting down in my bonus room in Auburn in my home, and my ex-wife is sitting down next to me. Maybe I'm about 33 at the time. And she was like sitting me down, like who sat me down really, in my life. God bless her. Like if she's watching, she is the reason for this content. She's one of the only people in my life. I've had great women in my life, but she was one of the only ones that ever sat me down, showed me compassion, and said, look, it's time to do something. She believed in me. You know what I'm saying? She was like, let's do something. Be a better person. Be the next best version of yourself. Here's what we can do. She's sitting me down and she's saying, look, I know that we're having some trouble. Why don't you tell me exactly what's going on? I'm going off in tangents, speaking bad about her. I got a couple of friends who are telling me that she's a bad person, which she's not. I got a few people who are telling me that you need to leave her. And then I got some people who are telling me you should be with her. Got a couple people telling me that she's a problem. I've assimilated all of this and I'm going on and on, all over the place, tangential, speaking fast, not making sense, but still she loves me. This is not a knock on any of my other partners, but we live together. I haven't lived with many of my other partners. Well, she got to know me a little bit more. And then she says one thing to me. She says, be explicit. And I didn't know what that meant. You know why? Because I had narcissistic traits. Narcissistic personality disorder is very different from narcissistic traits. And we'll go over that here shortly. But the reason why I could not pay attention to her, because I was narcissistic to myself. Now we're talking business. I was condescending to myself. I blamed myself. I didn't have empathy for myself. I didn't understand myself because I was talking to too many people. And what happened was that I had no idea what I was telling her when she was sitting me down compassionately, asking me what she can do to help me help her. She's still not blaming me for anything. Let's try to understand narcissistic personality disorder versus narcissistic traits. With narcissistic personality disorder, the big differentiator here is that they don't know what they're doing. It's honest, legitimate, very clear. The medical evidence exists for this. When you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to be able to create awareness. If you're condescending, if you're talking down to somebody, making them feel bad, if you're blaming somebody, if you're looking for constant admiration, they did that to me, I can't believe that, look at me now. And you don't know it, meaning you're wholeheartedly believe it's somebody else's fault and you're not the problem, then you likely could have narcissistic personality disorder. However, have you ever had any of these situations happen before where you may have texted an ex where you shouldn't have? Maybe you were not in the right position, you hadn't broken up, you were just looking for maybe, I don't know, maybe you were looking for a backup plan and you're like, okay, let me just text the ex in case and let me blame the other person because I deserve it. Now here's another narcissistic trait. They deserve it. That's a narcissistic trait. If you're aware of these things, these are narcissistic traits. When I was sitting down with my ex-wife and talking to her, I had narcissistic traits. But I didn't have narcissistic personality disorder. But the reason why I had those traits is not because of my dad. Oh, look at how we're talking now. Now we're empathizing. It's not because of him, because we didn't understand his lineage yet. His dad's dad did the same thing to him. They were under British rule at the time. That was being displaced on my dad's dad. My dad's dad displaced his fears on him and did the same thing to him. And my dad's protective mechanism was narcissistic personality disorder. Here's the thing about that. That doesn't mean you need to stay around them. We're not talking about that. We're not saying that you need to stay with them. You need to really disconnect. And if you have narcissistic traits, you need to disconnect too. There will be a table for narcissistic traits versus narcissistic personality disorder in the description. Let's go over a few narcissistic traits versus narcissistic personality disorder. The biggest thing with narcissistic personality disorder, as I mentioned, is they don't have insight. They expect admiration and constantly need validation. Lack empathy consistently. Entitled and controlling in most relationships, blames others and never takes responsibility. For example, when my dad made me hit my mom, I honestly believe he didn't have insight into it. Why is that? Because I've written it down so many times, I can see that he was trying. My dad was trying to help me be a better person, but he didn't know because his dad's dad did that. He didn't talk to anybody. He expects admiration. Look at what I'm doing for you. Lacks empathy. Who cares about them? It's all about me. Entitled and controlling. I am the guy who was in the small town in India. I barely knew English. I came to the United States. I'm taking care of you. I'm the man and you're not. Blames others. It's your mom's fault. Well, how about some of these narcissistic traits that I had? Even though I was condescending, I had insight into it. I knew that there was something wrong. Seeking validations in moments of insecurity. But did they do that to me? Is it because of them? That's a narcissistic trait. Struggles with empathy, especially under stress. No, it's all their fault. It's not my fault. But I knew that I was the problem. If anything, I had like narcissistic traits, but I still hated myself so much. I knew that it wasn't somebody else's fault, but implicitly I didn't have enough awareness. I hadn't studied mindfulness. I hadn't taught myself compassionate. I hadn't earned empathy yet. I still needed time, but I knew that there was something wrong and I didn't want to rest. Controlling in specific situations, fear-based especially. Here's the big thing about narcissistic people is that, man, you got to control everything. No, but it's their fault. No, they didn't do that. Let's say, for example, I had a real big problem with the kitchen. I've explained this in other videos where I'm like, that's not clean enough. No, you didn't close that bag right. Why is that? It's because I hated myself. I had low self-esteem. I had low confidence. I didn't understand who I was. And instead of trying to accept my mind, I tried to control others instead, especially who were weaker than me, to make myself feel good. Overconfidence is directly proportional to low self-esteem. Loud, abrasive, dismissive, interruptive. Overconfidence, low self-esteem, narcissistic traits. If you're aware of it. If you're not aware, then you have narcissistic personality disorder. That's where you just need to sever ties. Mind hygiene, which is supported by medical evidence, can help you understand if you do have it. But here's one of the big caveats to this, and here's what I'll leave you with, is that you cannot think about it, you can't talk to anybody about it. Matter of fact, don't even listen to me. I do not give advice. I inspire through action. Look who's here. Nobody. You know why? Because I need to be the best version of myself, and this is how I am the best version of myself. I'm so grateful now that I don't feel that self-hatred anymore. I do not have the narcissistic traits anymore, but I'm not going to be around somebody who doesn't appreciate the work that I'm doing. Because if you do have these traits, then what you want to do you want to be texting somebody that you don't want to because you feel somebody else deserves it? Do you want to be blaming somebody for the rest of your life? Do you want to be saying, for the person that sits you down compassionately and empathetically, to say that it's somebody else's fault? You don't want that. You need to be single for a second, for an hour, for a day, for a month, for several years. I was single for 10 years, 7 years on purpose. The journey from self-hate to self-love, for me to understand why I was being narcissistic, took me about 5 years. And in turn, I forgave my dad. I developed compassion for myself by taking action and writing, empathy for myself. Nobody sat me down. I loved what I didn't like about myself. See, in a rap video that I did called Control, that's when I released it to God. And I was like, look, it was one of the biggest things that I ever did was I was like, I'm a control freak. But it's not because I wanted to control somebody else. It's because I wanted to control my mind, fix my thoughts, overcome my problems, not find ways to accept and embrace them, which is aces your life with mind hygiene. Accept your awareness, communicate your compassion, embrace your empathy, and soften the process. Let's look at the medical evidence behind this too, when you do this, and how it can rewire your brain. When you act like your parent, your brain is running on an old program, familiar but destructive. Shame lights up the amygdala and keeps your brain stuck in threat mode. That's why breakups feel like identity collapse. And that's why you want to blame somebody else. But when you write from their point of view and reflect on your own behavior, something shifts. You activate the prefrontal cortex. How exciting is this? You're doing this by yourself. The point of all my videos here is that you don't need me, a doctor, a therapist, a coach. You just need yourself. You write 42% more likely to achieve your goals. Reduce anxiety, stress, cortisol, increase dopamine and serotonin by virtue of writing. Cortisol drops. That's not coping. That's reprogramming, reframing, developing a new mindset. But once again, the caveat here is that you cannot be around anybody. You can't talk to anybody. You should not be listening to me. Sure, there will be a link in the description to a Mind Hygiene PDF and a guide that you can follow along to believe in yourself. I believe that I have narcissistic traits, and I believe I can do something about it today. Now you've accepted your awareness. That's it. There's nothing more to do. You just keep doing that. Show yourself compassion along the way. Embrace yourself empathetically, and then when you get into that next relationship and you've forgiven yourself, you'll be able to rely on yourself, accept yourself, be confident in yourself, in your limits, love yourself. When people see you personally develop, they'll offer you money. I'm a speaker. I never asked for this. People ask me to speak now. People ask me to talk to them about these things. Of course, I'm a medical doctor, but this is my passion. But what I'm saying is that when you develop yourself, you'll be able to accomplish all of these things. But the biggest action step right now is if you're going through a breakup, you had a narcissistic father, mother, you don't want to be on Hinge, Match, Bumble, off completely, don't talk to anybody, go into monk mode, write. Sure, you can use my framework, but who cares? It doesn't matter. You can write your way out of this, is what I'm saying. But you can only make it about yourself. You cannot worry about anybody else. And if this video resonated with you, please subscribe, hit the notification bell. We're dropping videos every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on how to believe in yourself through a proprietary evidence-based writing process called Mind Hygiene. We'll see you in the next video, which will be, this breakup hurts more because of your narcissistic parent. Namaste.